Hello, everybody. This is Philip Martin. This is OnFilm on Video. It is September 30th, 2022, and we're deep into it. We're in the fall now. We've got screenings coming up next week. We're going to be very busy the next few weeks actually watching movies and stuff like that. I always get excited this time of year. It's the post-Toronto sort of, it's really the very beginning of prestige movie season. I mean, they take a little while before things hit theaters, I think, but I'm starting to see them. I'm starting to get screeners, starting to get screening opportunities. People are treating me like I'm somebody. I am somebody. Critics are important this time of year. Got a bunch of stuff opening this week. We have, Blonde opened on Netflix. I don't think it opened theatrically here, and it's too bad. We'll get back to that in a little bit. But that's our lead today. I wrote about Blonde for my Sunday column last week, the Sunday Perspective column, and we have Piers Marchant reviewing it this week, and I may, in fact, have some more to say on that later, but we'll save that. We'll put that aside for now. The Good House is opening. Bros is opening. Dead for a Dollar is opening. The Greatest Beer Run Ever is opening on Netflix. That's not all. I mean, Smile is opening, and we don't even have anything on it because they're screening it as I talk to you. That's coming up tonight because this is Wednesday. Yeah, you understand. Most of you do. Anyway, and I don't really feel like doing this. I'll tell you the truth. We've had some technical problems with this video. Others have noticed that, and that's fine. I mean, that kind of happens. I try to be transparent about and tell you that, this is just basically me turning on a camera and talking. Okay. Now, we're going to probably, at some point, maybe soon, a lot of it depends on me, get up and move this to downtown and move it to our Democrat Gazette offices where Nick is built a studio. So we have a studio downtown. And I think that this will be better suited, especially because if we have a studio, I will have guests in because I'm not having people over to my house. No, it's I don't do that. But we will have guests in. And we will do it a little bit differently. I'm trying to provide more clips and stuff like that and to give you a little bit different kind of experience. We're going to try to professionalize the experience. Let's put it that way. But I'm still going to be basically me and just basically talking at you because that's all I really care to do. Sorry, I'm not going to all of a sudden become Sammy Showbiz. Just don't want to do it. But anyway, movies I haven't seen that I really want to see, or there's not many of them. It's like there's not many movies that really get me going these days. It's sort of like when you're a sports writer, as I was, you sort of have all the fandom beat out of you, ground out of you, because you can't root in the press box, and it's bad form. You can if you are in East Texas, as long as you're writing for the right team. But you really shouldn't root in the press box. The same sort of thing applies if you're a movie critic. You should be rooting for the movie to be good, I think, all the time. But I'm not sure you should be fanboying out over Game of Thrones or something. And that's okay if you want to do that, but it's sort of like do that on your own time and recognize. It's just hard for me to be, wholeheartedly rooting for something. And being a fan feels foreign to me now because I've looked around the side of these things way too often. And some people, including myself, would say that's a symptom of being a critic, and that's one of the bad things about being a critic because you lose some of that enjoyment. You pull the wings off the butterfly, and the butterfly don't fly no more. And my job is to be picking those wings. That said, there are a few actors who I just really love. And one of them, I have to admit, is Florence Pugh, who's in Don't Worry, Darling. I just find her fascinating to watch. You should see her in The Little Drummer Girl, which I think is on Sundance. I don't know where else you can get it. Maybe Amazon Prime. I really still haven't worked out how all these streaming services work, but you can get AMC and Amazon Prime through different, or Sundance through different, screeners like Apple TV and Amazon Prime. But anyway, if you can find The Little Drummer Girl, go see that. I really enjoyed her in that. She was the best part of a Black Widow for me, though, as I've pointed out, I didn't really care for Black Widow all that much, though I did like the way they used American Pie in it, which is, again, not my favorite song, but we'll not go into that either. So I'm going to see Don't Worry Baby. I'm also going to see The Good House. The Good House intrigues me. It's got two of my favorite actors. And I say favorite actors, I really just enjoy these people whenever I see them on screen, even when they're in bad roles or in roles that don't suit them or stuff like that. Sigourney Weaver and Kevin Kline. Kevin Kline's a really good actor. And I have a really interesting experience with him. As we kind of talked about last week, there's a very transactional thing about doing these celebrity interviews. I don't like to do them. I don't do them very often. But when you do them, it's okay. You get 5, 10, 15, at the outside, 30 minutes with this person. And you're supposed to talk about the project because you're supposed to promote the project. That's their job, to promote the project. Now, my job as the interviewee, as the journalist, is to try to get something interesting and true that my readers will either find useful or enjoy or whatever. It's sort of like I'm trying to do one thing to get them off. It's sort of like a wrestling match. I'm trying to get them off balance and be honest and talk to me about things that they haven't talked to everybody else about in true ways. And they're very good at their job because they are movie stars and actors. They stay on message. And they stay on message and they don't want you to know they're staying on message. They want to come off as human beings and charming and personable and likable, and yet they still manage to do their job. That's why they are who they are, and they're very good at it. Now, this had to be in the 90s. I could look it up. It had to be in the 90s. We hadn't been doing movie style very long. It could have been early 2000s, but I don't think so. I think it was in... And I had an interview with Kevin Kline, and I was like, okay, and I'm kind of excited about it. I'd followed Kevin Kline's career. I'd enjoyed his performances in Fish Called Wanda and The Big Chill and, all the Kevin Kline things, Sophie's Choice, all this. And I'm talking to him, and we have a really nice conversation. And I mean, it's really just a conversation, and we're talking about art and how he does his job. We're not talking about how it was to work with Meryl Streep or whatever. We're just talking about the nuts and bolts of acting, how you create a character, how you inhabit a character, how you get this character, on screen, stuff like that. And we're going back and forth. And about, 25 minutes into this 30-minute interview, Kevin Kline says over the phone, he goes, just a second. You don't do this very often, do you? Because this is not the way these things are supposed to go. He goes, I'm having a good time. We're talking about real things. And that's the best compliment I ever got from somebody I interviewed that I believe was genuine. That I believe was genuine. I believe totally genuine. And I feel the same way about Kevin Kline. Kevin Kline was a great talker. We had a good conversation. And it was a conversation between people. It was not one of these transactional, sort of deals where he's got his canned things he's got to say, these points he's got to hit. Anyway, I didn't really want to do this today because we've been having a lot of technical problems here, and it's all my fault. Because my equipment is overloaded. I've got too much stuff on this computer. It's too much, but that's the way I have to work because I have to have a lot of stuff on my computer. Anyway, I want to show you this clip from The Good House, and then I'll be back.
Frank, I've been calling you for days.
Hey, Hildy. Remember this one? Name. Who's your daddy?
Do you ever answer your phone?
No.
Well, there's a lawyer from Boston who's very interested in your waterfront lot.
What for?
Well, what do you think he wants it for? It's one of the best lots left in Wendover. I could get you a wicked good price for it.
Wicked? You're talking towny to me.
Well, you're a businessman, Frank. Don't you want to make money?
Not as much as you do.
Don't you want to find out what he's willing to pay?
You lose your access to Getchell Cove.
I have plenty of coastline to avail myself of.
Avail? Where are you heading in that getup?
I'm going to Wendy Heatherton's party, not that it's any of your business.
The butcher's daughter's gone fancy pants.
Yeah, and Frankie Getchell still can't carry a tune.
Never could, never will.
Let me know if you change your mind. I answer my phone.
Hildy answers her phone.
I have it on pretty good authority. Kevin Kline can't carry a tune. Just that little bit of business. I mean, I don't know whether it's... The Good House was the novel I didn't read, but I hear it was pretty good. And this looks like a pretty decent film. A little, kind of adulty film. It's sort of like for people like me who aren't interested in shootouts and car chases, except sometimes, and people wearing tights and things like that. I'm all in on The Good House, but it's just so neat to see these two actors doing these bits, these accents and wicked, yeah, and then he picks up on it. It's just a nice little bit of business. I don't know anything about the movie other than what I just saw, and the Sigourney Weaver plays a high-powered real estate agent who has a drinking problem. I guess that's not a spoiler because it's right there in the first line of the press notes. So, or first paragraph of the press notes. So I guess it's not a spoiler. Anyway, so that's out there along with all the other stuff that's out there. And if you're looking for something that's not a superhero movie or not a rom-com, and if you are looking for a rom-com, this is a different one. This is The Bros and Billy Eichner. Billy Eichner was in a Hulu series called Horrible People that I honestly really, really liked. It was like when we first cut the cord and got off of cable. This was one of the shows that we picked up on really quick. Was Horrible People. I think it's still on Hulu, and it's kind of silly. It's it's sort of Letterkenny-ish in that it's sort of absurd, but it's grounded and it's it's Kimmy Schmidt-ish too, and it's also a little bit filthy. And Eichner was one of the main characters in it. I don't think it's a big thing in his resume. People know him from his Billy on the Street stuff, which I don't know anything about, and they know him from other things. But this is his rom-com, and I'll let Judd Apatow and others tell you about it. Here you go, Judd.
Wanted a movie that showed in a very funny but realistic way two adult gay men who both prided themselves on not needing a relationship. What happened to those men when they fell in love for the first time?
What are you into? One of these boring, ripped idiots with no opinions?
No, I'd like someone who's physically very frail and won't stop talking.
The first decision made about casting was that my love interest would be played by another openly gay actor.
Fun day.
And then once we made that decision, I turned to Nick and said, everyone in the cast should be openly LGBTQ.
We both wanted the same thing. We wanted to be really funny, but let it be honest.
This is a historical film, first of its kind.
So many people deserve to be seen who hadn't been seen. There'll be tons of new faces that people fall in love with.
Nicholas and Billy have been so genius in crafting such a dynamic cast and a diverse cast. We don't see that often.
Everyone's really funny. Everyone has a different comedy energy.
There are also gay terrorists.
And there are bi terrorists.
Okay, there are trans terrorists too. Caitlyn Jenner.
The sheer amount of talent that has not been utilized is mind-blowing.
These people are queer and talented. Go figure.
Now I have to go to a pride party and you're both too old to be in the pool. Please leave.
For all of us to get to meet and celebrate something like this is truly an honor.
Studio, Nick, Judd, everyone said from the beginning it has to be authentic.
Oh my God, do you guys remember Straight People?
Yeah, they had a nice run.
All right. I think Bros looks good. I really, I think it's probably going to suffer from the same problems as most rom-coms suffer from, but I think that's progress. Gay people can make a dumb rom-com too. All right, gay, trans, LGBTQ, queer community, much respect, but you can screw up the movie just as good as anybody else, right? Yeah, that's what I mean. Rom-coms always they're like superheroes. They have a predictable arc, and there's this sort of inevitable, kind of ending of collapse and then redemption. That's all I'll say. So I'm sure that this pretty much follows that, which is pretty much the point. And I get that it's a point, and that's great. Finally, I want to talk about Blonde just a minute. I've talked a lot about it, and I think that one of the things a lot of people don't like this movie because it is so depressive. It is depressing. It is about how fame just sort of crushed somebody who wasn't very, strong anyway, or maybe she was strong, but she just wasn't strong enough. And it gives us Marilyn Monroe is a fictional character to begin with. I mean, it's sort of like I remember when Don Mattingly came up with the Yankees. I remember that. And there's construction out here, so pay no attention to the men out there. Somebody asked him what he thought of Babe Ruth, and he said, "Well, what am I supposed to think of Babe Ruth? Babe Ruth." He thought Babe Ruth was a cartoon character. He didn't think he was real. I could understand why someone would think Marilyn Monroe was not real, that she was this Betty Boop type, archetype that we invented. And in fact, she was an invented archetype. And the architect of that archetype was a woman named Norma Jean Mortensen, or Norma Jean Baker, as she's often known. And the facts of her life are pretty well known. It's not a secret how she was brought up. It's not a secret about her father, who we definitely know who her father is if you want to do the research. And some of the stuff that goes on in Blonde, Andrew Dominik's movie, which is based on Joyce Carol Oates' novel, and it's important that that's a novel. It's novelized. It's imagined. Now, we're working with the parameters of what we know. Within those parameters, it's a novel. I mean, we don't know how these conversations, we don't know if these conversations occurred, we don't know these attitudes were present, all that stuff. But you're filling in, you're coloring in a life. I am not certain, in fact, I'm pretty certain that we're not getting the real Marilyn Monroe here. We're not getting the real Norma Jean Mortensen, because how could we? No matter what we imagine. It's sort of like if you hear somebody on the radio for a year, you will imagine what they think, what they look like. You will think you know what they look like. And then when you see them, it will be nothing like what you thought they were. If we were able to conjure Norma Jean / Marilyn right now, she would not be the person we think she was. And that's okay. Because a movie is not a biography. Not even a biopic is not a biography. It's not a memoir, exactly. I guess you could make a filmic memoir, and people have. But this isn't that. This is a movie about a scared young woman who's got a lot of courage, but not enough courage, who's got some strength, but not enough strength, and who is trapped in this sort of monstrous cycle. The showbiz expectations and the expectations of men who don't want her to be as smart as she was. The real Marilyn Monroe had a lot more agency and was a lot more lively and life-loving, I think, than the character here. And that's just what I think. I also think that there was a lot of pain and a lot of really ugly stuff that happened to her. And I don't know what that ugly stuff was. I just know that ugly stuff happens to most of us. Most of us don't get out of this unscathed. And we have, things happen to us. So let's just say that. But I loved Blonde the movie, and I think I'm in a minority. And I loved it because it recreates very well a time that never existed. It's a nostalgic film. Even though it's an unsentimental film, it's a nostalgic film. And sure, like I said, I think that we ought to give people like Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley credit for having more agency than we typically do. We typically, cast them as victims, and that's not the true story. That's not the whole story. That's not the only story. But we can only tell one story at a time, it seems. And this story is very interesting and very lovely. It's a painfully poetic movie. Okay, that's my brief for this movie. It has nothing to do with whether it's accurate or whether it's fair to Marilyn Monroe / Norma Jean. I want to show you this B-roll clip that Netflix provided. You're going to think it's strange because it is strange. It's got some dialogue, it's basically behind the scenes footage. Sometimes the sound drops out. I think you could make a movie just of this. And like I said, I really liked it, so I hope you like it. And we're going to end the show with this little 3.5 minutes of outtake or behind the scenes footage from Andrew Dominik's Blonde.
Thank you.
No, guys! No!
So your line needs to happen before then. Yeah. So it should be like a 3, 2, 1 action.
And when's the zoom? On 1, 2, 3.
Isn't it delicious?
Oh no. It must be awfully strange to be a hero.
That's what they are. Now, they make you happy.
Now you know what my problem is, don't you? I want the camera to be higher.
Move in, should be slow. Raged it and then bursting into tears, as opposed to tears and then rage.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hey, Norma.
What's it? You look fraught.
That way a tiny bit to the bottle.
And you still in car?
Hi.
So we'll see. That's why I say we'll see.
before we leave, before Norma Jean leaves us, can we do a quick blocking with Anna and
I think what you're saying is that you see.
Yeah.
I see you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There you are.